Welcome. This is Crawl, Walk, Run, Email Strategies for Every Stage of Marketing. All right, so we are from the San Francisco Bay Area, so we're coming to you from Save the Bay, or at least I am. I am Save the Bay's communications specialist, and so in addition to email marketing, I lead our social media campaigns, I run our blog, I do a lot of PR, I even contribute my own photography to the cause. And for some of you who don't know, Save the Bay is San Francisco Bay Area's largest regional nonprofit working to protect, restore, and celebrate the Bay. We've been doing this since 1961, so for quite some time. I don't actually have a personal Twitter handle, and I think that's just probably because I do a lot of social media in my daily life, and I don't want to do any of it in my personal life. So if you are tweeting, go ahead and tweet at SaveSFBay, and more than likely, I'll probably be the one responding to those as well. But beyond that, I've been at the organization for 2 years and have learned a lot about email marketing. Really excited to share with you guys some of the insights that we've learned. And I'll let TJ, my co-presenter, introduce yourself.
I'm TJ Warfield. I was actually at Save the Bay for 6 years, and a year ago I transitioned into the Salesforce consulting role, and I've been working at Brightset Partners, helping nonprofits get onto Salesforce, customize it, and all the good stuff. So I'll be your resident data geek for the day. Vivian's going to be strategy and that big picture stuff. I will fill in some of the historical learning moments from before time. So it's going to be a nice mix of a little bit of everything here.
Okay, so crawl, walk, run are some of the email phases that we're going to cover. And just to give you a really high-level overview, crawl is kind of that information sharing stage. It's the first stage in email marketing where you're really just trying to blast your message to everyone. Walk is more about kind of doing email marketing with a lot of intent. And you're going to hear that word throughout the presentation. We're going to talk a lot about doing email marketing with purpose as well. But basically this phase is really learning about your audience, how best to engage them, and also really setting your own personal goals. And then we're going to go into the run phase, which, by the way, that's TJ's adorable little kid. And that is more about email automation. So once you get past the crawl and the walk and you get into the run, it's really taking everything that you've learned in those stages and automating it, hands off, letting computers do the work. So that's kind of like the 50,000 foot level view of what we're talking about. So one of the things that we're going to do a circle time activity. It's fun. Answer one of these two questions. So what stage in email marketing do you think you're in? So are you in the crawl phase? Are you in the walk phase, the run phase? And then what are some of the things that you're thinking about in terms of next steps to get to that next level? Save the Bay is actually currently in the run phase. We're just getting to this point. It's taken us about 7 years to get here. Through that time, our goals have shifted as we've entered each phase, and also we've gone through a lot of email platform changes, a lot of database changes as well. So there's a lot of innovation, a lot of learning moments, and a lot of successes as well. So throughout this process, this is a really non-linear growth process when you go from crawl, walk, and then to run. So it's really filled with a lot of trial and error, and at times you kind of like have that like facepalm moment. You're just like, oh. And then you have that like, yes, we did it kind of moment. And so we're going to share those with you throughout the presentation. And yeah.
So hopefully you'll have less of those facepalm moments, because
yes,
they really hurt, but they're great learning experiences.
They are great learning experiences.
Oh, they're so painful.
Yes, they're painful, and I wouldn't call them failures necessarily.
That's true. They are learning opportunities. We're going to talk a little bit about what does it mean to be in the crawl phase, what can you do while you're in the crawl phase to get you to that next level. So we like to think of the crawl phase as the throwing spaghetti at the wall. You're usually in the information sharing, you're sending emails to the full list, you have a very limited email platform. This is the one time where we're actually mentioning a platform. Lots of times you're using vertical response because it's free, it's easy, you can use it with a whole bunch of databases, but that means it's super limited. You can't share templates. Usually in this phase, you have limited resources and budget. Your data might be all over the place and you need to wrangle that in, so it's hard to track things. And then staff time and staff expertise. A lot of the times in this phase, you have a person doing multiple things. A person who's trying to do communications, but also fundraise and has a little bit of marketing. So it's a very hard phase to be in, and you want to be in this phase for as little as possible. Unfortunately, because of all of these things of budget, staff time, and the amount of investment you have to do to get you to the next level, you stay in this phase a lot longer than you and your organization wants to be in. So it really has, and you'll hear intent a lot, so you really have to think through getting yourself to that next phase and explaining to your leadership and board why they should invest in money for tools and staff time to get you to that next phase. What are the benefits? One of the things you can do when you're in the crawl phase to get a sense of where you are, where you need to be, is focus on industry standards. M&R every year publishes a nonprofit benchmark report where they interview many nonprofits of all sizes, small, medium, large, massive, across all sectors of the nonprofit industry. And this report is great because what you'll get a sense of is even within the nonprofit industry, you have to focus on your sector and what type of message you're trying to do. For instance, this is a general completion rate for fundraising pages across cultural, environmental, health, hunger, poverty, and then small, medium, large, and you'll see there's a wide range of completion for a fundraising email across different sectors. So figure out your sector, where you fit in, and this is the advocacy page completion rates. Completely different than fundraising page. So this will help you set expectations, start you thinking of benchmarking where you can be. One thing we do want to stress about this though is even within your own sector, your constituents, your subset of that sector, may react a little bit differently. So this is not the end-all, be-all, like hit these numbers. It's a starting point for you to start understanding who your people are and what to expect from them. It's really just a base point. And some of the other things that you can get from this is frequency. What time of day? What time of the day is the best time to send your email? What day is the best time? How often? If you're sending them multiple times a week, how is that going to affect your open rate? Are you going to oversaturate them, piss them off? This will give you a starting point for that. And then there's, what's the point? Why are you doing all of this? What's your goal? Start thinking through this. You do not have to have like clear set, here's where we want to be, here's our communication plan for the next 5 years. Start these conversations going. Start the conversation with your leadership, start the conversation with your board, your internal folks, start the change manage process now. And start asking these questions internally. How is it best to reach your constituents? Message. Do you want to message your major donors in the same way as someone who just signed up for email, someone who just took a petition? And your goals. What are your goals? Short-term, long-term, just a general sense. Are you more concerned with just growing your list? Do you want to just target very specific people? Are you still interested in just sending them information? Or do you want to get engagement out of them? What are your overall goals? Then the other thing you can do to start prepping yourself for that next level is getting your list in order. Getting your data so it's not truly horrible. So when you get to that next phase, your data is actually useful. And this is the whole data geek side. Deduping. Find people. Do you have multiple channels that you're getting people in? Do you have them multiple times in your database? And that can be a problem. You might not think so because like, oh, it's, email address, we go once. But if one record has volunteer experience, one record has donation experience, one record has petition signing, you're not touching them holistically. You want to get them all in one place. So it's like, oh, this is a donor volunteer, so that you can communicate with them in a manner that they want you to communicate with them. And I have the picture of the kid with the mail. Have anyone like direct mail where you get something, you give a donation, and all of a sudden you're getting 2 pieces of mail from the organization with 2 different messages. And you're just like, I just gave you a donation like last week. Why are you asking for more money? So that kind of explains why you really want to get your data in order. Email append. There are services out there where you can say, okay, here's my list as it exists now. First name, last name, mailing address. Send it to them, and they will find email addresses for those folks. So the folks that you do not have email addresses for in your system, you're just like, you know what? We want to engage them, see if we can get them engaged digitally. Get their email addresses from one of these services. And you want to make sure that it's not one of those services that will just give you the email addresses. If it is, you'll want to do a kind of welcome. So you actually want to receive email from us email. Most services will do that for you. They'll brand it. They'll put the text that you want, saying, "Hey, like save the day. Would love to, communicate with you. Let us know if that's okay." They click on a button, and they're confirmed, so you can actually trust that they want to hear from you. It's kind of creepy to know that you haven't given someone your email address and then get an email, and it's a good way to piss people off. And then email clean is really best to do after you do all the rest. So email clean will take a look at all the emails you have in your system and say, these are at-risk emails. These are the ones that are going to increase your spam rates, going to lower your deliverability because they're either spammer emails or they don't exist. For old emails, like an old AOL, you might have someone that you have the old AOL email, and they'll say, you know what, this person isn't using AOL anymore. They're Gmail. Here's their new Gmail, based on data mining and public resources. So you can get newer emails, make sure that yes.
Just how often do you go through the appending process?
It depends on your organization. If you start with once a year, that's a good start. As you get more and more sophisticated, you might want to do it more often, like same as direct mail. If you want to do NCOA checks, national change of address checks regularly, so the more you do, if you do it once a year, if you're in the crawl, walk phase, that's a good starting point.
Okay, now we are moving on to our walk phase and leaving the crawl phase. So again, the walk phase is really about understanding who your audience is. You want to learn how to best engage your constituents. And one of the things that you can do that by is actually just testing everything, whether it's A/B testing, putting people into segments and sending them emails. It's also understanding where they're just generally coming from. So one of the things that we want to know about our audience is what are their interests? Are they action takers? Do they respond better to volunteer opportunities? Do they care more about donating? What types of interests within your organization? If you guys, for example, Save the Day, we do wetland restoration, so we actually get people, community members out in the field planting plants. We also do political action, which is totally different, but still a very core part of our mission. So even within that, you can select, you have to know who wants to be more of a volunteer or who wants to be an action taker. Demographics, just generally, if they're male, if they're female, if they're younger, if they're older, because that's all going to affect how you're going to communicate with people. People respond to messages differently and content differently. And also, what kind of technology are people using? Even within email, right? You can look at your email on your mobile phone, and that's a completely separate experience from opening an email in your computer. What kinds of, what kind of email browsers are they using? Are they using Safari? Are they using Chrome? Are they using Yahoo? Which I don't know if anyone uses anymore. But the idea is that even within that browser experience, folks are going to interact with your emails differently. And if you've built emails in the past, you'll realize that even if you have very standardized templates, they still look really different across those email platforms, which to me, as someone who builds emails, is actually very annoying. So it's really important to know that, how do they engage with email? And then also, if there are they in other places? So are they coming through social media? Do they also, can you direct them and ask them to share an article that your, nonprofit organization was recently promoted in? You have to know how else other people are engaged. In addition to knowing your audience, you also kind of want to know what your own personal goals are for an email. Whether it's on a campaign basis, identifying some of those benchmarks that TJ mentioned, for the short term, but also the long term. You know, like what does your list health look like? You know, where do you want to be in 1 year, in 1 quarter, in 1 month, even?
Okay, so we've talked a little bit about like getting started, but what's the point of it all? You need to define what success is. And that definition of success, everyone in your organization needs to be on board with that particular definition. You don't want your communication team to have a different definition for success than your fundraising, than your board. So once you have an idea of, okay, what does it mean to win? You need to get KPIs, key performance indicators. You need to get some metrics in place. What are we going to track? What are we going to set benchmarks on to help us realize if we've hit that goal? Have we been successful? And with the benchmarks, so we talked about how to start with the benchmarks. Benchmarks, depending on how often you send emails, there's no like, do benchmarks for this period of time. If you're sending emails every week, it'll be a shorter period. If you're doing it every month, every quarter, you're going to have to do it for a longer period. 1 email, 2 emails is not enough to set benchmarks. You want benchmarks for overall health. You want benchmarks for a fundraising email, an advocacy email, newsletter emails to get a sense of your very baseline without doing anything else. This is what we expect our particular set of constituents to do. And then as you go, you want to compare everything that you're doing to that set of benchmarks. With benchmarking, you want to be that guy at the bar who's just like, I can do one better than you. Like, I see that and I raise you. So with benchmarks, you want to get to that next level. You want to one-up yourself constantly. One-up yourself, say, okay, here's our new benchmark. Do it better. Here's our new benchmark. So you're constantly wanting to collect data, compare, and one-up yourself. KPIs. Thinking about KPIs, key performance indicators. We were ramping up for a big campaign, and staff-wise, really good staff. We had 8 staffers in the communication team, 3 database staffers. Really good staff. Everyone came together, was like, all right, we're gonna do some metrics. And we had something like 30 KPIs. And when you printed this off, this is actually part of it. It wasn't legal. We're talking a sheet of metrics this big.
It wasn't legal.
It was not. It was legal. And what happened is we would spend a week crunching numbers to get our stats and our pie charts from the previous week's emails. And it broke us. Like, all of the data folks just like, no, anytime communications calls, just don't pick up the phone. Like, hi, like do this, like hide under your desk. It was too much. Like, you couldn't do anything with it. There were too many things going on, too many variables, too many moving parts. There was no way to know. It's like, okay, for this metric, is it because of the subject line, or is it because we did this other thing over here? Too many moving parts. So what we did, many months later, we figured out that we didn't have to make our lives miserable. We focused on very little actionable points. And what we decided that was most important to our goals and success, our definition of success, was conversion rates. Can we get them to open, click, and submit, whether it's to make a donation, to sign up to volunteer, to make a petition. And so what we decided, the ways that we're going to do that, aside from just did they hit submit, open rates, click-through rates, deliverability, and unsubscribes. Those are the things that we focus on now. Those are the baseline metrics. So we can actually see, it's like, okay, what we just did, what we just tested, had this effect on here. Now we can take action on that. And the whole point of actionable metrics is replication. If you're going to test something, if you're going to keep track of metrics, you want to replicate it. You don't want to do something that you can't use again in the future. You want to do something that you can use over and over and over again.
Great, and so in addition to those KPIs that are actually way more specific than just overall list growth, one of the things that we learned when it comes to list growth is sometimes that list growth actually equals attrition. You're actually still growing, technically, if you're losing people, because some people are more valuable to you in your list than just having a bunch of things. And so one of the things that was kind of just like one of those facepalm moments, like, oh my God, we're losing thousands of people, you guys. It's not only stressful, but one of the things is that you're actually narrowing down the constituents that you're talking to, and these people are going to be more engaged and more receptive to whatever it is that you're emailing to them. So right now, Save the Bay operates, we say that we have a full list of just under 70,000 people in the Bay Area, and we're actively engaging less than a third of that, so 26,000 people. It's a really big drop, and it's something that, you know, as a communications staffer, when you see that difference, it scares you, but just know that it's actually okay. And that there's no real reason to panic, because you're actually now getting your message across to the people who are really going to take the action, who really care about your mission, and want to see you guys succeed.
Yeah, those numbers on a chart makes your heart drop.
Horrifying.
It's truly horrifying. And then you have to think through, like, why? It's like, oh, this is a good thing. Okay, we're going to talk about a little more about tactics and how to get better engaged with them. How do you get your folks from like huge list size? How do you move them through the conversion tunnel? So segmentation, these are the folks that you do want to talk to. And at a very basic level, segmentation is putting folks in buckets. Could be interest-based, it could be, are they a donor? Are they a major donor? Are they a lapsed donor? Are they an active donor? Have they taken a petition recently? Have they volunteered? Are they one of your partner programs? And it's important to know that with segments, your folks could be in multiple buckets. It's not you're going to put them in this and they're going to stay in this. They can be a donor that is also an action taker. They can be a volunteer that is a partner. And what these segments do, they start streamlining and standardizing your processes. So with streamline and standardize, it's really important also going back to those metrics. If you're changing your segments every time we'll send, too many moving parts. Like, you cannot compare that to last campaign. Try to standardize those as much as possible. Have some base segments, and then tweak those a little bit depending on what type of communication you're sending out.
Great, so one of the things that we learned about segmentation is that not only is it super important to keep those segments standardized, but it's also really important to keep them kind of in order, especially when you're running a really, really big campaign and you're sending a high volume of emails. So last year, Save the Bay, what we did is we had this election and we had this measure on the ballot called Measure AA. Essentially, in short, what it is a parcel tax that would be taxed to the entire Bay Area, and the money generated would help fund wetland restoration. So it was a $12 parcel tax that over 20 years would generate $500 million. It passed, which is actually really cool. It passed with a 70% yes, no, which is awesome, and it's like really the first time any regional action, the entire Bay Area has come together in support of San Francisco Bay, which is awesome. And it also teaches us that, you know, our constituents love the Bay. But the reason why we were so successful is because we segmented out all of our emails. You know, segmentation allows us to expose people to the right message. So whether it's political, whether it's some sort of political fundraising, and also we had messages about and blogs about, you know, what Measure AA, what kind of projects would it would help fund around the Bay Area. So if you're in Santa Clara County, you would have projects that were different versus if you were in San Francisco County. And so we also wanted to make sure that we were segmenting people out by where they live. So what gets even more complicated, and this is why it's really important to keep your segments straight, is for this particular campaign, Save the Bay actually established a sister organization, which is Save the Bay Action Fund. It's instead of a 501c3, it's a 501c4, which means it gives us a lot more political leverage to go out and lobby, and it also gives us the power to support candidate work, which wasn't really the case in this part, but when it came to actually getting folks to contribute to the Measure AA cause, it was really big for us. And so what that meant is that we had to sell our Save the Bay list to the Save the Bay Action Fund list. So all of a sudden we had two lists of 60,000 people. That's a lot. That's a lot of people to manage. And we were also sending different emails based on what kind of things we wanted them to see. So if there was a political message, an action-taking message, we wanted people to donate. But also, we wanted to make sure that the C4 messages and the C3 messages, based on the compliance and legality of things, we weren't mixing them up. So we had to keep everything distinct and discreet. So in short, really, segmentation is super important, especially when you're sending a high volume of emails, because you don't want everyone to see everything. And that also really scares people away. People don't love to see their email inboxes flooded.
And then list suppression. These are the folks that you don't want to talk to, and there's many reasons why you don't want to talk to them. Your segments, you can use your segments to say, you know what, we're going to suppress this particular segment. Major donor is one of those segments that gets suppressed a lot. If you're sending a fundraising email and you're cultivating someone for a really big ask, you don't want to be sending them an email. It's like, hey, give us $50. But so you want to make sure that you're not breaking relationships as well as engaging the right people. So another way that, like newly signed up folks, whether or not you have a welcome series, you may not want to include them with certain types of emails, fundraising. So if they've signed up recently, you might want them to get the information at once, like, hey, sign this petition, or here's our newsletter. And you may not want to start asking them for money right away. So you might want to suppress those folks who have just signed up. Or if the message is risky, like with Measure AA, you might find out that most of our folks are Democrats. You might find out there's some Republicans that if you message them, you might lose them as constituents even though they're really engaged in other ways. So if the message is risky for any reason, political, otherwise, you might want to start thinking about demographics, who your folks are, and suppress some of those folks out. Non-responders. Non-responders are the folks that haven't opened your email for a set period of time. Save the Bay says, okay, if you haven't opened our email in a year, you're a non-responder, and we're not going to email to you anymore. It may be less for you guys, it may be more, but the obvious reason, it's like, oh, non-responders, we're going to save a lot of money by not emailing them because list size is smaller and we're sending out less emails. That's not the only reason to do suppression of non-responders. By getting those out of your list, you're going to lower your spam reports. You're going to lower your spam reports. But you're also going to figure out who are the most engaged folks and talk to them.
Great, and then additionally, with non-responders, you can't actually assume, even though you're not emailing them intentionally, you can't assume that they're like dead to you. Because the thing with non-responders is that they sign on to your email list somehow because they were for some reason interested in the work that you do. And so they wanted more information. So it's not that people don't care. With non-responders, I think generally in all communication, this is one of the things where we, as communicators, when we see that people don't engage with us, we just automatically default and think, wow, they just don't care about the environment, or they don't care about women's issues. It's not for them. That's not true. And we actually see this today in sort of our political landscape. People care and they're looking for ways to take action. And so the thought is that don't assume that people don't care. Find out how best to engage those folks and how to re-engage them. And that's exactly what we did in our most recent email. This was just 2 weeks ago. Our president proposed some really, really steep budget cuts, basically eliminating the entire San Francisco Bay EPA program, which is a really big deal. Just to clarify though, Save the Bay, we don't take direct funds from the EPA, but it does support a lot of the work that needs to happen for a clean and healthy bay. So it's a really big thing. And so what we decided was that, well, since people in this day and age are really looking to be engaged, they're looking to take action, we should probably do an email send to our email non-responders. And so we did, and we actually sent them in batches, and the reason for that is because we wanted to increase our deliverability rates. So instead of sending like the list of like 30,000 plus people, we just did it in like small segments. So we sent like a series of messages. And essentially, with the email non-responders, unlike kind of a more typical email campaign where you would set goals and stuff like we talked about earlier, we were just kind of like throwing pie at the wall and hoping someone would respond. And the thing is that they did. And so we got about 567 people opening our messages, which means that those people are now back in our list. And it also, we got 6 donations as a result of this. So it also tells us that folks are still really engaged. They do care about the issues that affect the Bay. So just remember that your non-responders, even though you're not always emailing to them, don't assume that they're dead to you, because there are still people out there who just care, but we just need to find a better way to engage them.
Segmentation, list suppression, that's all internal. That's how you're defining your folks. Then you want to take it to the next level and say, okay, we want to hear from you. What do you actually want to hear about? What don't you want to hear about? So this is subscriber management, giving them control. And it's a great way to get them better engaged, because you're just making assumptions based on activities that they've done, things that they've opened, and that may not be the case. So you want to give them the option to tell you what's involved.
Okay, from the Data Geek side, checkboxes are dumb. I love checkboxes for lots and lots of things. Easy to report on, easy data entry, but for subscription management and managed preferences, no to the checkboxes.
They're not scalable. If it's unchecked, does that mean that they don't want to hear from you, or that you haven't heard from them, that you just don't know? So in this case, pick lists are going to be your best friend. They're scalable. You can start with just subscribe, unsubscribe, blank. It's very obvious of blank, you haven't heard from them. Subscribe, they want to hear from you. Unsubscribe, no, they don't want to hear from you. And it's scalable. You can say, okay, send me less. As you get more complex, send me less might turn into send me once a month, send me once a quarter, send me whatever. So it's scalable. And so with Learning Moment is, so we've got our managed preferences. Now we need to give them a way to tell us. So we created a managed preference page. And you'll notice that it's actually really hard to read. So news and updates, they've got subscribe, send me less, unsubscribe. Fundraising, subscribe, send me less. And then volunteer opportunities, subscribe or unsubscribe. So you can determine, just because you have it on the back end, all of these other options, you can determine what you want to give them access to. Fundraising, there's no unsubscribe. And this goes back to the intent. We had a lot of people in a room trying to figure out what do we want to give them actions to. Pretty much every email, nonprofit, every email is going to have some sort of ask. And even if we said, okay, fundraising email is just the ones where it's 100% ask, it was determined, and everyone in the room agreed, that if they say they don't want to hear from us with fundraising opportunities, they are not worthwhile to be on our email list. So we would rather have them opt out at that point. And down here on the bottom left, it's really hard to read. This is the footer on emails. So a lot of email platforms require that one-click unsubscribe, and you may not be able to get rid of that. So you want to put the managed preference link more obvious than that unsubscribe. Because what we found, that last year, over 1,000 people used managed preferences instead of that little unsubscribe. And that's also moving them down through that conversion tunnel, making it so that you're only emailing the folks that are engaged, and in this case, you're only emailing them in those areas that are of interest.
Okay, so let's talk A/B testing. So A/B testing is actually super important. It gives you, it's basically a test comparison of 2 different emails where you're kind of using the scientific method. And of course, we all learned this in grade school, but in the scientific method, you have your hypothesis, you have your sample size, which in this case, ideally, is really large, something around over 1,000, if that's what you can do, if that's in as many people as you have in your list, to get a really good statistical significance. You want to have a large sample size. You also want to make sure that you're testing one variable at a time. So you have a control group and you have a test variable, which can switch. So examples of test variables can be like your email subject line. Is there a certain word in your email subject line, or is there a tone that you're going for that you think will get more people to open your email? Maybe it's, where do you place your donation button? Is it at the top? Is it on the left? If it's on the right, is it at the bottom of the email? What color should that button be? What should it actually say? Should it say give, or should it say support, or should it say donate? You know, if you have questions about how people are engaging with your email, the simple answer is test it. See how your audience responds, and then go off of that and learn from that. So one of the things, and again, we're going to use the I word, intent, is you want to test with intent. Don't just say, oh, I want to do an email subject line test because I'm just curious. Make sure that the results that you're getting are actually really going to help you with your future campaigns. One of the things that we've done at Save the Bay, and in the past we've done kind of like head-to-head subject line tests that are split 50-50, so your list is like cut right in half. And we've also done tests where your lists are, or there's a series of A/B tests. So you run the first A/B test with maybe 30% of your list, and then the rest of the 70% actually get your winning message. So there's good and bad to both of them. One of the things that we tried to do, and this goes directly back to that same email I was talking about with Trump slashing the SFBA funding, before we sent to our email non-responders, we actually ran an A/B test. We were really curious to see if people were turned off by like the T words showing up in their subject lines, or if it was something that would really engage them. And so we did a test. So we did subject line A is breaking, Trump slashes EPA funding, and then subject line B, Bay under salt from Washington, D.C. Now it's a little hard to see on this slide, which I apologize, but again, we're putting these slides on the deck or in the PowerPoint notes. But we learned is people do engage with the word Trump in the email subject line. It doesn't turn them away. It actually results in a lot more clicks. And also, it became our winning message, and that's the message that we used for the non-responders. That's one important thing when we talk about testing with intent. You know, what are you going to do with that information? Well, in our case, we just took it one step further and said, well, if this is the email that people are responding to the most, then we should just send that out to the people that we want to connect with still. One thing about A/B testing, and I mentioned it earlier, I would recommend a 50-50 split of your list. It's just a really crisp, easy way to see who's more engaged, who's not, in terms of email. When you do a 30% and a 70% split, the problem with that is that there's a lot of steps in between. So if you don't have software that actually does this automatically for you, it means that you need to go back in and manage this process yourself, which takes more time. Additionally, one of the things that you have to be really cognizant of is that after you do your test with the first third of your list, is that you need to make sure you give enough time for people to open all those messages. Because sometimes what you're going to get data back that may or may not reflect how people actually open their email. Some people open their email, if you send it in the morning, they get to it at night. So you're not going to find out what the final test results are until way later. And sometimes that doesn't work if an email is extremely urgent, which in this case it was. So it's just something to keep note.
Actually, I'm going to take us on a segue here. So going back to the manual A/B testing, a lot of times you may not have upgraded your email platform that has the ability to easily do those A/B testing for you. It's like, okay, test this, send the rest of those. We actually did this at Save the Bay, where before we had that email platform, we started doing all of these other things, but we weren't to the place where we could afford that next step with the email platform and migrating data. So we pulled it out of the database, threw it in Excel, did a random number generator, and took odds and evens. So it is possible to do this if you don't have the fancy software. It's just a little bit extra manual work, and then you have to manually send those follow-ups. But it's completely doable, and not having the software shouldn't scare you away from that.
So one other thing in addition, I just want to share a few more learnings when it comes to A/B testing. So in addition to learning that Trump is a trigger word for a lot of people, one of the things that we've learned is if you use adjectives like fight or mobilize or take action in your subject line, those also get more clicks, more opens as well. So in addition, one of the things that we do, we also send a monthly e-newsletter, and that monthly e-newsletter is basically like a listicle of stories. One of the things that we learned is that the first story and the last story usually gets the most clicks. And I think that kind of goes to the point of, when you talk about communication, you kind of remember the first and last thing. And that's exactly the case, and it's reflected in email. So in terms of ordering stories, that's another thing that you can test. Just remember that all of the results that we're sharing with you are very unique to our own organization. So just kind of take it with a grain of salt. All right, and so now we are about to, yeah, you have a question?
Do you think personalizing the subject line
Yes.
also increases open rates?
Yes, it does, and we've seen that.
Did everyone hear the question?
Yeah, so the question was, if you personalize your email subject line so it says, hey, Vivian, take this action or do this thing, it will result in higher open rates because it is personalized. Earlier, I think we talked a little bit when we were talking about the Measure AA example. We do the same thing with cities and counties. You know, San Francisco Bay, you know, or what's it called? Measure AA will influence your county. This is how it will help your county. And it makes it a lot more personalized, and you're like, oh yeah, okay, how is this going to affect my county? So using any type of personalization in your subject lines is always ideal, and that's stuff you can test as well, if you really wanted to. Yeah.
Just in terms of like the analytics that come back from doing A/B tests in over the course of a year, 2 years, what do you guys recommend in best practices in sort of taking all that knowledge and making some sort of action plan around it? Because it can be a lot of data and a lot of different nuances about those tests. So how do you kind of approach that on a larger scale?
So one of the things that we do. Okay. Oh, so the question was basically when it comes to A/B testing and you're doing a lot, how do you kind of make that actionable as time goes on and long term? So basically what we do at Save the Bay, with every A/B test, we just kind of do a small write-up after that says, this is what happened. This is how people responded. This is what they did do, what they did not do. What we thought would happen, what we didn't think would happen. And that's why you actually really need to be clear in your hypothesis and kind of when you go through that method of testing, you know, what variables were you manipulating, what were you not, and then just kind of jot that down. And then over time, start to notice those trends as you're sending future emails. And that's basically what we do in terms of data collection.
And with the things that work, incorporate those in your future emails.
Yes. Yes, you always want to keep going forward.
One up yourself.
Yes. All right, so now we are entering the third and final phase. This is the run phase. It's really about kind of building this journey of engagement and walking folks through it. We also want to start assigning people scores, and we'll talk about exactly what that means in a moment. And it's really a chance for us to automate the conversation. So just as a quick reminder, by this point, you kind of know who your audience is. You're starting to test and figure them out. Now we want to take all of that information that you've acquired in the crawl and the walk phase and apply them here.
You get a score! You get a score! Everybody gets a score!
So basically, one of the things that we're doing at Save the Bay, oh, I like that. That was really fun. One of the things that we're doing at Save the Bay is we're starting to give people kind of like report cards based on engagement. So it's a numerical value that you can kind of code. So for example, if someone opens an email, they get 1 point. If someone clicks on a link, they get another point. If someone donates, maybe that you code that as like 2 or 3 points because it's a higher ask, it's a higher bar, so they get 4 or 5 points at the end of it. So basically what this means is that the people with the highest scores are your most engaged constituents. So it's like a really nice kind of baseline, easy metric to see who's your A+ students and who's kind of like your B/C range and maybe, I don't want to say F, but who's not responding. So it's really an easy metric to establish for yourself and an easy way to see who, even within segments, are engaged. Okay, so again, like I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, Save the Bay is kind of starting to run a little more than walk and crawl. And so in terms of scoring, this really gives us an idea of just how effective we are in all of our email campaigns. It also makes it really easy for us to segment things out. So for example, when you want to email non-responders, when you code that report, it would basically look like score equals 0. Instead of just like putting on your non-responders. It just makes it so much easier. And even if within action segments, if you want to pull a report later, say you have this petition and like a bunch of people signed it, who within those action takers is actually your most engaged constituent? And that's something that you can pull. You can say like score above 100 or something like that. And you can find all those people who are highly engaged within the segment that you sent them. So So it gives you a lot of detailed information about who these folks are.
You can also be really good with fundraising.
Yeah.
If you have like high scores in fundraising, that can be a trigger to like, oh, we need to kick this one up to the development office so that they can do some like more in-person cultivation. So scores can be used all throughout your organization and not just on email strategy.
Exactly, and that's kind of where we hope to get with this. And for me specifically, as someone who works in communication, I'm more concerned about, okay, how do we take people through that conversion funnel and make them brand ambassadors? So for me, that's really what the scoring does, is I get to see exactly who is the most engaged and maybe like turn them into like our rock stars or our superstars.
And another data geek input, so kind of along the lines of A/B testing, you don't have to have a fancy platform to do ranking. You can do this manually. You can have formula fields that say, hey, if the number of, like, multiply 3 times the number of petitions, multiply. So there are ways to do ranking before you get that super, super expensive marketing automation platform.
So in the run phase, we also want to automate the communication journey. And so by doing that, we're kind of getting rid of the fact that we need to do things manually, and we're just creating welcome series and drip campaigns kind of hands-off. You know, you've done the crawling, you've done the walking, you've done all the research. Now it's just time to put something together and let the robots take over. This is really the part where you don't want to actually be doing all of this work. A welcome series, we'll talk about that first before we get into drip campaigns. A welcome series, for those who don't know, is basically your introductory email. It's like, hey, welcome to Save the Bay. This is who we are. Stick with us because we're awesome and we're going to give you cool updates about what we do. We want to make sure, again, with segmentation, you keep these folks out of your normal emails. I kind of think of it kind of like when you're going on a first date. You don't want to like kiss someone right away because that's weird and also creepy. But it's also just inappropriate. That's in the same way as, you know, sending a fundraising email. You're not going to go and be like, hey, give me $100. It's not appropriate. You want to ease people in. That's really how relationships work, and that applies to the technology that we use to foster and grow those relationships. So this is what Save the Bay's welcome series looks like. We have a series of 3 emails, so it's like a welcome email, something that's maybe a little more about what we're doing currently in terms of like political action, and then like a final email that's about fundraising. So the way this is structured is that we send welcome email number 1, we wait 1 week, we send email number 2, and we wait another week, and then email 3, and then they exit the program and they get our normal Save the Bay email.
And what's the difference between 1, 2, and 3?
The difference between 1, 2, 3 is the type of emails that they're getting. So they're all different asks. They're all introductions to and more sort of in-depth information as to what we do at Save the Bay. The great thing about automating this is that you actually don't need to do anything. You just kind of put your messages in. But the thing with automation, though, is that you have to do everything up front. But once it's done, you just don't touch it. And so what happened in the past, and this is when I first started, and I was like, oh my God, why are we doing this? Was we would send Welcome Series 1 to our newest constituents, and then we would send Welcome Series number 2 to our Welcome Series 1 folks, and then we would send Welcome Series 3 to our Welcome Series 2 folks, and we did this manually between it took too long. It took like an hour. It took staff members. It took 2 staff members just to complete this, which is kind of ridiculous when it doesn't need to be this way. And you know, when it comes to time and resources, you really want to be spending them elsewhere if you can. And so that's why email automation is really cool and also important here.
Do people receive like your other ongoing emails before like they receive all these, or do you wait for them to finish this program?
We ideally wait for them to finish this program. We do also create very specific welcome series for specific asks. So, for example, if we did some sort of like email, we got a bunch of names from a bunch of people from like a Care to Action or a Courage Campaign Action, we would actually create a special welcome series for them where the intro email is like, thank you for taking action with Courage Campaign, welcome to Save the Bay. So that it establishes that flow and fluidity and that connection of like, oh, this is where they came from, this is how you got here to us. And we talked about that earlier in the presentation, that, you know, people don't like to be surprised by emails, and I know I don't. So establishing that is actually really important. Yeah.
How did you develop and test the content for these before you automated?
But how do we test and automate? So one of the things that we do, because we've had these welcome series for quite some time, we just kind of look more at the stats. We don't necessarily do kind of like A/B testing necessarily, although there is an option to do that. You can get super sophisticated with these types of things, by the way. But it's more or less looking at the types of stats where people are clicking specifically on that email and then adjusting as necessary. So if people are clicking, you know, like your social media icons at the bottom, maybe move them to the top. So yeah, another thing that's important to note too, because the person who I was doing with this manually, one of the things is when we talk about resources and time, oftentimes, sometimes people get sick, sometimes people have to miss work, either to go to N10 or something else. And so this is a task that can get deprioritized. And that's actually the danger of doing this manually, in addition to the time and the money that goes into it. Because welcoming your folks and being really engaged and being, you know, consistent with your marketing is actually really important this day and age. And so if you miss that opportunity to welcome folks, it doesn't make sense to welcome folks 3 months later after they sign up for your email. So that's another thing to know.
Drip campaigns. There are lots and lots of types of drip campaigns that you can do. You can do fundraising campaigns. This one is an example of a thank you drip campaign where someone has made a donation, they're not a monthly sustainer, and this is an email campaign to try to get them to be a sustainer. There's multiple points of exit. If they've done something throughout, like in the middle of this and they've done something, or they've already become a sustainer, they get booted. There are all sorts of exits. There's, if they do this, then they get this version. If they do this, then they get this version. If their donation was over $500, they're going to get a special email versus the $50 ones. And learning moment here, this is also compared to the old manual way. The old manual way was the bane of my existence. And it would take, so we would have email campaigns that were multiple series. So we'd have 3 sends in the series. And each send would have 6 to 8 segments. Now, going back to the very beginning when I mentioned streamlining and standardization, we did not standardize our segments. Every single segment, every single email, every single run in the series was a different segment. So we couldn't reuse reports. We'd have to start over every single time. Really hard to do tracking of analytics because, again, too many moving parts. Same thing with our KPI, not legal spreadsheet. It was too much. And this was one of the things that we used to sell our leadership and management team to invest in the insanely expensive marketing automation platform, because our online person at the time and I sat down and was like, okay, so all of this happens and they provide content. Like, that's going to happen no matter what. From the moment the content has been finalized, the creating of the email and these segments, between the two of us, she and I, it would take 20 hours for every email that was going out. So that's 20 hours every email series between 2 people, 2 fairly high-level people in the organization, because no one else could handle the complexity of these segments. We couldn't have anyone lower down. It had to be the director of IT, the data, and the online manager, because no one else could handle it. So we sat down and we number crunched. And this is where it gets hard with staff resources versus budget. Budget, hard ROI, really easy to prove that you're gonna save money. Staff resources, you're gonna continue paying these people salaries. Like, you're not gonna save money, but 20 hours between 2 people who are high level in the organization, you can refocus those hours on something that actually matters to hit your mission goals. It's all about opportunity costs. So we sat down and it was like, here's how many hours per year with these 2 people, and then it takes Vivian and another data person X number for the welcome series, and then it takes all of this other thing. So it's really compounding and keeping track of also how long it takes internally. So finally, we were able to say, okay, fine, can we finally standardize these segments? at least in some fashion, so that we can get these emails out faster and we can actually analyze the statistics and learn from what we're sending. So you've done all these things. You've got your folks on a journey. You're good, right? So your goals are going to change. Your journey for your folks, your target audience is going to change. You want to constantly keep track of that and monitor it. And you tweak them as necessary. A couple years ago, Save the Bay's main bad guy was a developer trying to build on wetlands. Now, main bad guy, T-word. So you have to shift the journey, you have to shift the target, because your organization isn't static. You have to move it. And the one thing that I forgot to mention here, it took a lot of time to set this up. And unlike the old way, where in between the emails, they can be crafting the text for the next email, it's really work intensive setting up your drip campaign, because everything has to be done and decided and finalized that moment you hit send. But then once you hit send, done. So it's really worth the time. And then all the folks, all of the high level, the techies, all the people who've been doing all of this manual work, you graduate, freedom. And I was doing a similar email presentation with another system admin who was also, at the time, getting out to marketing automation. And she's like, I've had to do this for so long that it was like empty nest syndrome. Like, anxiety. It's like, I have to give it to a non-technical person, which I want to do. I don't want to do this. Like, I've hated doing this for so long. But, like, ownership, like, you can't let go. So you have to embrace the freedom. And as I tell my 5-year-old son, go frolic, be free. Like, just accept it and move on. And really appreciate what all of this work that you've gotten here has accomplished for you. So we talked a lot about tactics. How do you do it? But what you can't do is always think about tactics. You can't forget about your leadership. You can't forget about your board. Change management, we mentioned at the very beginning, like keeping them in the loop. The example of the growth versus attrition. If you don't explain that to your board and they just see metrics, if they see a graph, like, okay, we started here, and then we're like, emails, and they're gonna think you've done something very wrong. So if there's no narrative with those metrics, if you haven't pulled them on board, it's like, no, this is a really good thing. Like, we're engaging our folks. They're not gonna wanna approve any new resources, any new budget. And so you want to think of them as your constituents. They are your constituents. Internal constituents are just as important as your external constituents. Send your board members and even your internal staff email so that they know what you're doing. And make sure that they're involved in these conversations and that you're explaining along this entire journey why they should invest. Like, why should they invest thousands of dollars, tens of thousands of dollars, depending on what you're doing, to get you to jump to that next level? And explain to them that it's, as we mentioned very early on, it's not linear. It's not like, oh, we're going to do this thing. No, it's very heavy investment, time, resources, budget, and then you plateau a little bit, you're like, okay, we can even out, we can stay in this phase for a little while, learn, budget staff time doesn't need to increase, and then you're going to have to invest again. So compare that to your hard and soft ROIs. Soft ROIs can be much more meaningful than the hard ROIs. That opportunity cost with your staff time can make a huge difference. That's how we got to that next level to run. We said, okay, here's how many hundreds of hours we are wasting and not being able to do this, and this, which the board and leadership really wants to do. So they saw that, they're like, yes, how much is it going to cost, when can we do it? So you really want to keep them in the loop. They are just as important as your external folks.
All right, so it is time for our second circle time activity. Also learn what your future plans are. Have they changed at all based on this conversation that we've been having? And what are like 3 concrete actions that you can take when you get back to work on Monday to bolster your email marketing? Go ahead and just know that whatever phase you're in, just know what you need to do next. And if you have have any questions about what that is, go ahead. We're going to open it up to question time. Yeah. And real quick.
I had a question. You mentioned the services for cleaning up your email list and appending the email list. So how do I find more about that? Because that's kind of something that's going to be helpful for my next steps. Best way is Google search, email append, or email clean. Depending on, so email clean and email append, depending on your email service, like if you're at the higher level of email vendors, they may offer that service at an additional fee. But there are kind of like NCOA houses. There are those that will specifically do that and find the best price, just Google search them.
I was going to suggest when you use Kickbox.
Kickbox?
Kickbox.io.
Kickbox.io.
And you can do quite a few emails for a pretty reasonable price.
So Kickbox.io, emails for a good price. And back.
I'm actually looking for tips for getting out of the crawl space when you're a 1.5 person marketing team. And you're constantly tied up in other departments' projects. So we have our annual fundraiser coming up in April, so I'm like, after that, I can start implementing some of these things. But no, not really, because they have something else that's kicking off in August. And no, not really after that, they have something else, and they just need marketing all the time. So, and this clearly takes a lot of time, like what we're saying, to get out of the crawl phase. So, and I know it's important and we should do it, but it's just 1.5 of us. So.
There are some email platforms before you get to the super heavy hitter marketing platforms. I'm actually going to name another vendor. MailChimp, for instance, has some of those like beginning automations that you can pay a little bit extra for. So you don't have to do the full jump. You can like, I think they have minimal A/B testing by default, and then you can get more sophisticated with a little bit extra money. So it might be worth saying to your folks, like, okay, we just need this little extra money to upgrade our service without doing a whole full redo to get this additional functionality so that we can do X, Y, and Z. And I have more time to do X, Y, and Z.
Is email still the best return on investment in comparison to like social media or?
Yeah. Overall, I do find that email is the best return on investment, and that's mostly the case, especially with fundraising emails. It's really hard to get people, even though there's functionalities, Facebook, Twitter, they're all kind of doing their own things, where they're doing their own donate. There's drawbacks to that as well. You know, with Facebook, my understanding is that not all the proceeds go directly to us. We do have to have like a set number of names before we can get those folks in our system.
And it takes a while to get the money from them.
Yeah, it does. So that's a drawback. But for email, definitely it is one of the higher ROIs that we see consistently.
After that welcome series intro, how often do you send emails?
We send a lot of emails. Save the Bay does. So our comms team actually works really closely with the development team, and they work really closely with a consulting team that does a lot of their copy editing and stuff like that. So in coordination, we can probably send maybe like, I don't know, in the double digits of emails per week, which means that we're not spending all that time doing the automation. So that's actually, like, for us, it's really important.
And I want to point out, so earlier with that whole KPI, I mentioned that the comms team was 8 strong and we had 3 data folks. That's not the case anymore.
No.
We've sophisticated the systems so that the systems like don't need so much manual input, and it's more streamlined. So there's 2.5.
There's one full-time comms person, and that's me. And then there's one half-time person and a consultant.
And there's one data person that is pretty much focused all on development, because so it's not always like you're always going to have to spend this money. By spending this money and simplifying, you can save it in other ways. But I also wanted to mention that size does not match up with the phases. There's a small advocacy nonprofit that's like, you know what? Our goal is advocacy. So they invested right at the get-go, super expensive marketing automation platform. That was their priority. So not making a lot of money, not doing a lot of stuff, but that was their, like, that strategic goal. So they do not equate. Sometimes it feels like it does, but it doesn't have to. It's all about your org's priorities.
I was really interested in like the point system you talked about for your engaged subscribers. Is that something you can automate, or how do you actually go
To
about
be
that?
honest, I'm not the one who actually set it up. I just know how it works. I'm not sure if it is something that you can automate, but maybe TJ can speak more about
The more
that.
expensive marketing automation platforms have that built in, and you just say, if they click, it's worth X number of points. If they do this, it's X number of points. If they submit X number of points, and then they can talk to your database of, okay, if they've done this, X number of points. So the more expensive platforms can do that for you. But as I mentioned, if you don't have one of those, and you have a data person or a data consultant.
Oh, hello. We're presenting right now.
We wanted to know where that went, but we didn't have the answer.
No fire alarm. That's good.
But you can do it manually. If you've got someone who knows your database and is able to customize it a little bit, you can create a formula field that says, okay, every donation is worth X number of points. Every donation over this is X number of points. Every petition is X number of points. Every email, open email, every click, every submit is X number of points. So you can still do it, kind of sort of automated. It's not as sophisticated, but you can get at least some type of ranking.
How do you tackle A/B testing with very small lists while ensuring statistical significance?
That's a good question. If you do have a small list, it is still worth doing an A/B test with what you have, because what you're gaining from this test is information about your audience. What engages them the most, and what do you need to do to keep growing. So when you do have a small list, I would just say test with what you have. But ideally, anything over 1,000, I think, is a fairly fair sample size to go off of, and you should get some statistical significance there.
And reducing the number of, like, sometimes A/B testing, you have like 4 or 5 tests that then go into a winner. If you have a really small size, you may not want to do the test winner. You may just want to do the side by side, figure out the winner, and apply those learnings to the next email. So you kind of optimize your test size and still have a sense that it's reasonable enough focus. And back.
Do you mind sharing what email marketing platform you guys use?
Sure. So the email marketing platform that we use is called Act On. It's actually they work with more for-profit companies, but recently they're kind of starting to branch into the nonprofit world and create data sheets and metrics that are more useful for us, which is nice. A lot of the stuff now that's in there are like stuff about leads and marketing stuff, so it's not really for us, but they're continually improving.
Thank you.
And you make sure you ask about nonprofit discounts.
Yeah.
And don't accept their first quote.
Yeah, in the back.
We're just now starting to build like a trigger system with integrated into our site. So like donation form abandonment, automatic trigger email. I was wondering, are you guys doing that? And is there anything that you've had success with journey building or trigger?
This is still a really new case for us, actually. We're still trying to test this out and see what works for us. The drip series that we showed earlier, that was set up like 4 months ago. So it's still really new for us, so it's kind of hard to...
You mentioned like after each A/B test that you write up kind of, the lessons learned. But then do you have like a guide? Like I can see where you use over 2 years or staff turnover. Like how do you keep that information from all that testing over time, front and center? Or maybe it doesn't matter, like who knows, like now, using the keyword works, but maybe 2 years from now you have to retest anyway.
Yeah. In terms of data that we collect, we just store it in our server, and we keep updating year by year as well. So we'll collect monthly stats, and we'll also do kind of a full report at the end of the year of just general lessons learned. Any other questions? Okay, well, that's kind of all we have. We just wish you the best of luck in your email journey as you crawl, walk, and run. If you have any more personal questions that you'd like to ask us or just kind of one-on-one stuff, go ahead and we'll be up here.
Until they boot us and then we'll be in the hall.
Right, or someone knocks on the door again. Also, if you want to learn more about Save the Bay, how we use Acton more specifically, I'm happy to talk through that. If you want to learn more about how we actually achieved Measure AA and got a full regional buy-in for a ballot measure, go ahead and chat with me. I know TJ.
Or if C3, C4, you want to figure out how to do that in the same database and still hit your legal requirements.
Yeah, there are many.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.